Hello class, and thank you for watching this video on the absolute value equations. Again, this assignment is due on Monday, January 13th. Now, again, my disclaimer is like usual to make sure that you have completed this assignment. Again, all you're doing is just checking your work, okay? So please make sure that you've done that. So for the first two examples, again, we're looking for these very simple equations on absolute value. The first one, we are looking at identifying the value of x. So for here, what values of x make this equal to 11? So there's two possible solutions. X is either going to equal to positive 11 or x is going to equal to negative 11. So there's your solution. For number two, x is going to equal to either positive or negative 5. So there's your solution. Now, number three is a little bit more complicated to this example to figure out the value of x. Many of y'all will probably think that there is no solution because of the negative 14, that the absolute value cannot equal to negative 14. That would be true if it was only the absolute value. However, since we're multiplying this absolute value by negative 2, we're going to divide by negative 2 to isolate that, and we get that the absolute value of x is equal to positive 7. So now we can do the same thing that we did in the previous examples. X will equal to positive or negative 7. For number 4, many of you are a little curious about this one right here. Well, since the absolute value is being divided by 11, let me zoom in more. That means that the inverse operation would be to multiply by 11. So we're going to multiply by 11. So that way, multiplication of 11 and the division of 11, we cancel each other out. Those two operations cancel each other out, leaving you with the absolute value of P is equal to 44. So then P would equal to positive or negative 44, and that would be your solution. Now for number 5, we are not multiplying or dividing. Here, the absolute value of x is being subtracted by 10. If I write it like this, it probably makes a little bit more sense, switching this to the front and this to the back. Let me write it below it. We get that the absolute value of x minus 10 is equal to 1. So we're subtracting 10. So thus we're going to add 10 to both sides. Thus the absolute value of x is equal to 11. So x has to equal to positive or negative 11. And here's your solution. Now, something that I did see some of y'all do on your assignment is you were writing that x was the absolute value of x was equal to 11, and then the absolute value of x is equal to negative 11. This is not the way we write the solution, okay? So this is not the correct way of writing this solution right here, okay? The value of x is equal to positive or negative 11, okay? That's the number. These two numbers here are what we plug inside these two vertical symbols, okay? Inside those two vertical symbols. All right, so just to clear that up, because I did see that, not that I was kind of wrong, but it just bothered me just seeing the answer like that, okay? So for number 6, we're going to divide both sides by negative 8 since we're multiplying by negative 8. And we get the absolute value of x is equal to positive 11 again. So x is equal to plus and minus 11. Positive or negative 11, I'm sorry. Okay. So now the next example, we're looking at trying to solve this one. So very similar like the other example. We're dividing again by 4. So we're going to multiply by 4. We're going to multiply by 4. It's equal to 12. So now the absolute value of 12 would equal to positive 12 or negative 12. All right. So now the next example, we are going to add 10. We're subtracting 10, so we're going to add 10. Very similar to, again, to number 5, right? Notice that we're doing essentially the exact same thing. The only difference is that this was equal to 1. Now we have it equal to 0. So 0 plus 10 is 10. So the absolute value of x is equal to 10. Thus, that means that x is equal to positive or negative 10. All right, so that now takes us to the back of the assignment, where now we have multiple operations that we have to do before we can isolate the absolute value. So very similar to the previous assignment, all we have to do on this is use inverse operation. Well, here we're multiplying by -8 and then subtracting by 8. So by inverse operations, we would have to add 8 to both sides first. So -8 multiplied by the absolute value of m is equal to -32. We're going to divide by -8, and the absolute value of m is equal to +4. Okay, so now since the absolute value of m is equal to 4, then that implies that m has to be either positive or -4. Okay, all right. So for number 10, here by the order of operations, I would have to multiply first by 7 and then -7, I'm sorry, and then add that 1 to it. If I rewrite it and I flip it over, it looks like this. Okay? It might be a little bit more helpful for you to understand why I'm going to do this following. So by the order of operations, like I said, if I plug in a number right there, I would have to take obviously the absolute value, make it positive, multiply that with -7, and then add 1. Right? And the answer should equal to -20. But working backwards and using inverse operation, I would subtract. So I would have to work backwards and subtract the 1 to undo the adding of 1. So these two operations cancel each other out. -7 gets multiplied with the absolute value of x. And I would again do the same thing to the other side. So I would subtract 1. That equals to -21. So -7, I divide them by -7. And the absolute value of x is equal to +3. So this one does have a solution after all. So thus x has to equal to positive or -3. All right, very good. So for number 11, again, the same thing here. If I was to substitute in a number into m, by the order of operations, I would have to multiply by 3 and then add this 10. All right. Multiply by the order operations, I would have to multiply by +3 and then add 10. So I want to undo that. So I need to work backwards from the order of operation. Since the last thing I would do is add the 10, that's the first thing I'm going to get rid of. So I'm going to subtract the 10 from both sides. So 3 times the absolute value of m is equal to 21. I divide by 3, and the absolute value of m is equal to 7. So now m has to be positive or -7. Now moving on to number 12, I would start by, again, subtracting 9 from both sides to do using inverse operation. So 10 times the absolute value of r is equal to 90. I then divide by 10, and the absolute value of r is equal to 9. So thus, the number that could be the value of r are two possibilities. Either r is equal to +9, all right, because the absolute value of 9 is 9, or r is equal to -9, because the absolute value of -9 is 9. So this, again, is going to be your solution. Now, the proper way of checking your answers, of course, and which I'm going to do right now for this, at least this one example, is to plug this answer in right there and check that it equals to 99. Again, this is something that you will want to do when you're, again, taking a quiz to verify, again, that you actually do have the correct answer, okay? So now moving on the last two, I believe these are the last two examples. Yep, last two examples. For this one here, the order of operation multiplies by -8 and subtracts 5. So going backwards and using inverse, I would get rid of the last operation, which would be subtracting 5, So I would add the 5 to cancel those two operations. So that cancels out, and negative 8 gets multiplied with k, and subtracting these two numbers, that equals to negative 72. Dividing by negative 8, the absolute value of k is equal to 9. So it does have a solution. I don't have any negative signs. So even though we start off with a negative value because of the operations that could be performed, then we do get a positive value. So thus we can get an answer. And the possible numbers that we can plug inside the absolute value for this k, it could be again either positive or negative 9. Okay. And then finally, number 14. To solve this equation, we would add the 3 to both sides first. And negative 10 multiplies with the absolute value of p is equal to negative 90. We would then divide by negative 10, and the absolute value of p is equal to 9. So look, just like the previous three examples, the value of our variable has to be either positive or negative 9. Okay, so there you go. So again, I hope this was helpful. Make sure again that you have that you completed. All you're doing is just checking that your answers are in fact correct. But again, go through the whole explanation. Hopefully, it was very clear to you why I did what I did. But if you still have any questions, please again make sure that you see me in the morning. And we have tutorials on Wednesday. Wednesday of this week. Okay. Again, thank you for watching and have a good day.